when I was in college, I took a course called Psychology of Grief. Very early on, they gave us an activity to do that I can remember to this day. They wrote on the board, grief is like ... And then there were a number of options you could choose from. Everybody who chose a particular option had to present to the entire class why grief is like this thing they chose. Some of the choices you could have gone with were grief is like a well, grief is like a book, grief is like surgery, which I think is the one I went with, but I actually forget. The part I remember is the discussion that followed from another group's choice. Grief is like a season. There are a number of reasons to liken grief to a season. I mean, both of them can bring you a certain amount of discomfort, right? Both of them can be kind of unpredictable. Here's my favorite response. Both of them require you to dress appropriately, which is why I've gone with a slightly more somber color scheme. Slightly. But there are two analogs that really stood out to me. Seasons are cyclic, and even when a season is really bad, sometimes it brings you relief in certain ways. Here's what I mean when I say seasons are cyclic. I really don't like winter. And yes, that's a problem when you're Canadian, but it is my least favorite season. I don't like driving on winter roads. I don't like doing that penguin walk because it's slippery outside. I don't like dressing appropriately. Seriously, I hate wearing big thick sweaters under a bulky jacket with heavy winter boots on. But here's the thing. I know every year that winter is coming, and that's why when winter gives way to spring, I don't throw out my winter clothes and my winter tires. I know I'm going to need them again. And I also know that when the cold weather starts, it's not going to last forever. It's just going to last for a season, if you will. Grief is like a season because it is also cyclic. Just like I know on the darkest, dreariest days in February that there are beautiful days coming in July, you need to be aware that when your grief feels like it's at its worst, it will not always be this way. Now, that is not me saying suck it up, get over it. That's me saying trust me, I've seen it before. I dealt with crying, grieving people every day in the funeral home. And then when I saw them a couple of weeks or months later in the mall, sure enough, they had smiles on their faces. Why? Because it wasn't that season anymore. However, please keep this in mind. Seasons return. Just like I'm never shocked to learn that winter has returned, don't be too shocked to learn that your grief has returned. Now, you may be doing fine or okay for a while, whatever fine or okay means, but then you might be overcome with extreme sadness again. Now, that doesn't mean you fell off the wagon. It doesn't mean you relapsed or whatever fail vocabulary you want to paint this with. It just means you are experiencing the seasonal, cyclic nature of grief. There's nothing wrong with you. It happens to everybody. You're not the only one. In addition to its cyclic nature, the second thing that makes grief like a season is that sometimes even really bad seasons can give you good things. Here's what I mean by that. As I've mentioned, I really don't like winter, but do you know what is kind of good about winter? In the winter, there is no pollen, which means I don't have allergies. The other good thing about winter is that's when hockey is played, and I do like hockey, yeah, a little bit. Now, am I saying that either one of those things makes winter good? Not even close. But what I'm saying is, I am forced to acknowledge that those kind of good things are a direct result of winter. Now, I need to tread very lightly on the application of this point, so I will beg your indulgence in return. Sometimes when you experience a loss, that does afford you a couple of good things. For example, let's say you have a very sick relative, and that means you have to take your relative to a number of medical appointments. After you experience a loss, I think you know what I mean by that, after your loss, you no longer have to go to all those medical appointments. Now, would you trade? Would you go back to the way things were, medical appointments and all, just to have your loved one back? chances are. I mean, only you can answer that for sure. But what I'm saying is, it does not make you an evil person to notice and even appreciate the fact that you've been relieved of some of your duties. That's why grief is like a season. It is cyclic in nature, which means the bad does not last forever. And when the bad does return, you don't look at it as something unusual. It is something quite natural. It happens. Also, even though a season is really bad, sometimes it affords you some good things. And you don't need to feel guilty about acknowledging and even appreciating those good things. That doesn't make you an evil person. Keep it tuned here to lastrites.com for more speaking tips and the occasional bit of grief counseling. That's last-writes.com. And if you follow me on social media or sign up for my email newsletter, you will be made aware of these new videos as they become available. And together we, that's you and I, we will lay boring speeches to rest by giving them the last rites. I don't like dressing appropriately.